Okay, well our next event is the dd2 Masters Final. They're on the starting grid. Let's go down to Jenny Wade. She's got one or two guys to talk with.
Cristiano Morgado lines up on the front row next to David Griffiths for the final here of the dd2 Masters class at the Rotax Max Challenge Grand Finals. Now, line 2, we take a step back, Martin Pearce and Scott Campbell, one of our previous winners. So the start itself is going to be a good one. Lining up on row 3, Giancarlo Guavi and Dennis Cruz, also one of the former Masters winners. On row 4, we have our Russian driver Igor Mukin and Guy Panzard, of course, both quite capable of winning today. Maybe a podium, who knows. Now, all the guys have their helmet on, so not really a good time to make an interview, and I guess a little bit nerves and anticipation for the race. However, I'll just go through the next row, Alan Rudolph and Hannah Leighton. Now, I know that Hamish on the 5th row was one of our front runners in the practice and also in qualifying was quite quick. So we'll see what happens with Hamish, and of course Alan's not going to give him any space coming through the first corner. It's going to be a good one, so we'll stay tuned, and yeah, great afternoon here at Portimao.
Well, something of a mini tragedy, I think, here, because Dennis Kroos of Holland is scheduled to start this one on the 3rd row, a former world champion, and I don't see Dennis's cart there. Dennis Kroos scheduled to start on the 3rd row, but there's a gap where he should be. Dennis Kroos, one of several former champions at this level. Well, you can only feel for the Dutchman. You've qualified for the final. You're starting on the 3rd row. It's a 21-lap race. You feel you're in with a shout to win another world title. There is Dennis, hands on hips, but there's no cart there. What is happening for Dennis? Dennis Kroos in his exosuit. Smart helmet, but no cart. That blank piece of tarmac is the key. I don't know if he's in a position where the cart can be brought or if it's all ready to... 446, Dennis Kroos. The cart is being brought round. I think he is being admitted to the start line. And Dennis Kroos just now going through some limbering up. Tim de Fighter, I notice, at the head of the machine. There we're looking at cart number 443, which is Guy Pansart of France. And Guy Pansart been a very, very good driver. And in the middle of your screen, those of you looking online, Dennis Kroos's cart number 446 is being wheeled in. Well, does that get Dennis on his toes right from the start? Or has that taken a lot of nervous energy from him before he even sets off on this 21-lap journey? And Tim de Fighter and Dennis having a real hug there. Hey, and that's nice. Gonçalo Gaivo of Portugal giving Dennis Kroos a handshake saying, well done, mate. I didn't want you to not make the start. And the same again. Well done, guys. The Team USA driver down there is Alan Rudolph. A very, very sporting start to this dd2 Masters race, with people recognising that they wouldn't like to be in the same position as Dennis Kroos, but hopefully all's well that ends well. Well, we've not mentioned the poleman, have we, on the bottom left of your screen, or middle left of your screen? It's 2 times world champion at this level, or excuse me, twice a Rotax champion, once at Masters and once at Senior, Cristiano Morgado. Joining him on the front row, an expression I've used earlier today, the occasional racer. The fun racer, David Griffiths, done well to get himself onto the front row of a final. Martin Pierce on the podium in the second ever Rotax Grand Finals in 2001. Shares row 2 with Scott Campbell in his 9th Rotax Grand Finals. Gonzalo Gaivo of Portugal and Dennis Kroos row 3. Igor Mukin of Russia, Guy Pansard of France row 4, and Alan Rudolph of the USA and Hamish Layton of Australia completing the top 10 on row 5. It's an all-French row 6, Guillaume Berthaud and Charlie Hipp. Row 7 sees another former champion, Jesus Perez Santander of Spain with Fernando Guzzi of Brazil. Florent Lambert of the UK and Luke Soriel, another former champion, are on row 8. There's the green flag. We roll onto our warm-up lap. Nick Irwin, remember, the New Zealand driver, he's driving in an all-hand operated machine in kart 458, starting on row 11. A 21 lap race for dd2 Masters. Now there's a statistic I want to tell you, but I just dare not say it. Look at that big crowd, those of you tuned in online. This is the top of the cliff top. The bus is the Team USA bus. Those are the hills that drew in the rain earlier this week, but right now they're being kind to us. To the right of your screen, the Portimao Autodrome, adjacent to the Portimao Cartodrome. Cristiano Magado is on pole position and David Griffiths is alongside him on the front row. This is a 21 lap journey. And that's an aborted start. An aborted start, we are not racing. Well, we go on another formation lap. All of these Haas chassis. It's the Haas company, Jorn Haas, the only person to win a world championship in karting as a driver and as a chassis manufacturer. Jorn Haas. The only person to do it in Formula One, Jack Brabham. The only person to do it in karting, Jorn Haas. Well, how many times have I told you this, guys? My hands are getting a little bit clammy. My throat's a bit dry. Well, maybe it would be anyway. But I'm nervous. And so many of these guys down there, they tell me they don't have any nerves. Not sure I always believe them. Chris Magado, David Griffiths, leading the field round. Oh, that's a good clean break, and David Griffiths has outgunned Cristiano Magado, and David Griffiths leads. Cristiano Magado is second, but he's got a nudge and loses another place, I think. Cristiano Magado back into third place. I think that's Scott Campbell in second place. My read of this is David Griffiths 1, Scott Campbell 2, Cristiano Magado 3, and I think I'll pretty much stand with that until they come round and prove otherwise. David Griffiths clearly in the lead. Scott Campbell in his 9th Rotax Grand Finals second. Chris Magado bidding for a 3rd Rotax World title in 3rd place. Well, David Griffiths thinks that this is a sprint race, not a 21 lap race. He's kicking away. Very fast start from the outside of the front row. Really fast starts from the outside of the front row that are clean and legitimate, or a little bit rare. Didn't look to me as if it jump started. Chris Magado now putting pressure on Scott Campbell. Chris Magado clearly doesn't want to hang around in 3rd place too long. If he got into 2nd, he wouldn't want to hang around in 2nd place too long. Again, this conundrum for your race commentator. Do I keep my eyes glued to the track, which I want to do? Do I take a quick peep at the TV screen? Or do I look who are these guys in 4th, 5th and 6th? Let's go with that. Martin Pearce is running 4th. Charlie Hipp 5th. Gonçalo Gaivo of Portugal 6th. Another former champion, Luke Sorial 7th. Alan Rudolph, the first of 2 Americans, 8th. Mike Jones, the second of the Americans, 9th. And Guy Pansart of France completing the top 10. Nicky Irwin in the all hand-operated machine. Kart 458 is in 14th place. David Griffiths has a lead of half a second over Scott Campbell, and Cristiano Magado makes a move and it doesn't come off. I'm not sure that was 100% conviction by Chris Magado. I think he was maybe just sizing up the situation, seeing if he could draw a move out of Scott Campbell. Well, Cristiano Magado is massively experienced, but even with his experience, he hasn't run 9 Rotax Grand Finals. Scott Campbell has. And into 5th place, it's Gonçalo Gaivo going past Martin Pearce of Ireland. So Gonçalo Gaivo into 5th place. 4th is still excuse me, making a little cough. Charlie Hipp in 4th place. One of the 2 French cousins. Haven't seen him in 4th place all week. Hey, this is the final, and Charlie Hipp's running 4th. David Griffiths' lead has been reduced by half. And Scott Campbell bids to go into the lead and does. And all of a sudden David Griffiths looked to have lost a little bit of pace. And Scott Campbell 1, David Griffiths 2, Cristiano Magado 3. And Goose goes into 4th place. Gonçalo Gaivo now 4th. Martin Pearce, I think, has gone past Charlie Hipp, will be 5th. And Charlie 6, Alan Rudolph 7, Luke Sorial 8, Mike Jones 9, Guy Pansart 10. Jesus Perez Santander that I'm looking at is knocking on the door of the top 10, was 12th at the end of the 3rd lap. I think he's picked up a place. Oh, and somebody at the hairpin has had a little bit of contact and grinds to a halt. Wasn't one of our front runners, and it's not somebody I can recognise. Chris Magado has gone into 2nd place. So David Griffiths' lightning start has rebounded a little. I have to say, David Griffiths didn't seem to be beaten in a passing driving move. Just looked as if that car was losing pace a little bit. David Griffiths has just been a second slower, or at least 0.85 of a second slower than Scott Campbell and Cristiano Magado. And, well, if David Griffiths is beaten on merit by these 2 guys, so be it. Wouldn't like to think that he'd lost out because of them. And all of a sudden, David Griffiths' car looks back on the pace, doesn't it? Scott Campbell leads, Chris Magado 2nd, David Griffiths 3rd, and the problems, if problems they were for David Griffiths, look as if they've clarified themselves, and Magado goes into the lead. Cristiano Magado, the 2003 Rotax champion, the Formula Ford racer, the Formula 3 racer, coming back to karting. And as we start lap 6, the South African leads. Scott Campbell still 2nd. Oh, it is tight, isn't it? And David Griffith looking for a route past. These 3 very closely bunched on lap 6. We're at the 1/4 race distance. in this 20-lap race. And David Griffiths bidding to go second and goes second. So Cristiano Magado 1, David Griffiths 2, Scott Campbell 3. Good drive into fourth place by Gonçalo Gaivo. The fourth place driver, Gonçalo Gaivo from Portugal. He raced in the Mojo Cup meeting here 3 or 4 weeks ago and won it. Do you know what the weather was like then? Poured with rain, it was windy and it was cold. Well, we've got a sunny afternoon. Sunny Saturday afternoon for the Rotax Max Challenge Grand Finals 2012. Chris Magado. A statistic that I'm not going to use. I really can't bring myself to use it. Tell you afterwards at the end of the race. David Griffiths piling on the pressure onto Chris Magado. Ever so slightly detached Scott Campbell, and when I say slightly detached, still well in the running to win this one, but not quite on the tail of David Griffiths, as David Griffiths is to Cristiano Magado. Cristiano Magado, born in South Africa, of parents of a Portuguese background. His father Rui is here, one of my best friends, and Dave Griffiths takes the lead. Dave Griffiths takes the lead, and Cristiano Magado's got to do it again and does do it again. Well, this is the final, and we've had so many passes for the lead, and we're only coming up to the end of lap 7, and David Griffiths really doesn't want to hang about, does he? The body language, and David Griffiths got the angle slightly wrong there, so Cristiano Magado will certainly stay in the lead for the time being. I don't feel I'm doing justice to the rest of the guys in the race, but all 3 of these at the front have led at some stage, and Gonçalo Gaivo in 4th place is catching them. This is lap 8 of 21. At the 1/3 race distance. Well, I take a little pause and tell you that behind Gonçalo Gaivo 4th, Martin Pearce is 5th, Alan Rudolph 6th, Charlie Hipp 7th, Luke Soriel 8th, Guy Pansar 9, and the amiable Florent Lambert completes the top 10. Mike Jones, the Dallas Karting Centre driver, drops out of the top 10 to 12th place. Dennis Kroos, who had that heartache at the start, is not in the top 20, is running in 21st place. Former champions Chris Adams, only 27th, and Colin Davis, only 28th. Hamish Layton, out of it, in 32nd place. And David Griffiths retakes the lead. David Griffiths once again into the lead. This is lap 9 of 21, and Scott Campbell looking seriously at Cristiano Magado. Well guys, let me tell you something, and it's relevant to what you're watching. My first ever Rotax commentary, Rotax World Grand Finals, was at Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt, and Cristiano won. But at the start of the last lap he was 3rd. But then Adrian Astasi, who led, was passed right by Ricardo van der Ende. Oh, and a little nudge there from Scott Campbell to say to Chris Magado, hurry up. Chris Magado then passed Adrian Astasi and then past Ricardo van der Ende, and all of that was on a 1200 metre lap of the Sharm el Sheikh Ghibli Raceway circuit. Are we going to go down to a 21st and final lap shakedown? And you know guys, I'm talking of this as a 3-lap race. Look where Gonçalo Gaivo is. The dark horse, or the dark goose if you will, in 4th place, latching on to the front runners. David Griffiths has got a little bit of a margin. Cristiano Magado fairly close, but having to keep an eye out for Scott Campbell. And then just 3 more kart lengths, and Goose Gaivo 4th. Martin Pearce running 5th, Alan Rudolph completing the top 6. And Chris Magado has a peep to see if there's a way through. and goes for it. Well, that looked like selling a dummy. Cristiano Magado goes through, and so does Scott Campbell. And Dave Griffiths all of a sudden is defending third place against Gonzalo Gaivo. Cristiano Magado moved out as if to say, I'm coming through, dipped back in behind David Griffiths to say no, it won't work, but then shot out and took the lead again. Scott Campbell second, David Griffiths third, Gonzalo Gaivo fourth. This is lap 11 of 21. We're at the half race distance. 10 and a half laps gone, 10 and a half laps to go. So into the second half of the race, Cristiano Magado's lead is 1.5 lengths over Scott Campbell, the 9 times grand finalist. But Scott Campbell closes that 1.5 lengths to about 1.5 inches, and Gonzalo Gaivo made a dive there at David Griffiths, which Griffiths was obliged to defend. It's a great race, these four. They're racing for a world Rotax title and for a place on the podium. One of these unlucky guys is not going to make it onto the podium, and yet all 4 of them would make a worthy champion. This is lap 12 of 21. Cristiano Magado still leads from Scott Campbell. The tightest hairpin on the circuit precedes the toughest climb. This is the long drag up to the start of the home straight, which is the highest part of the circuit. They're climbing up there now, and now the downhill run to the start line. Cristiano Magado losing ground a little bit to Scott Campbell, but Scott and Dave Griffiths dives through a gap that isn't really there. Wow, a really good race. People will ask me later on today, which were the good races? Guys, I put it to you, how good a race is this for a Rotax Grand Final title? 4 stunningly good drivers. Cristiano Magado in the lead, Dave Griffiths second, Scott Campbell third, Gonzalo Gaivo fourth. It's a great race, and Martin Pearce in the blue racing suit is the lonely driver in 5th place, just hoping that the 4 in front of him will do something a bit silly and open the way for him to get himself towards the podium. But Martin Pearce a long way back at the moment, just in front of Guy Pansard. We've lost the American drivers, haven't we? Where is Alan Rudolph? Alan Rudolph I don't see on my screen, and I don't see him on the circuit. He's 19th. So Alan Rudolph, who was running 6th at one time, has dropped to 19th. Gonzalo Gaivo putting pressure on Scott Campbell. David Griffiths not wanting to let Cristiano Magado get too far away. About a cart and a half length between them all. At least there are when they close in at the hairpin. Cristiano Magado 1, David Griffiths 2, Scott Campbell 3, Gonzalo Gaivo 4, and they're not quite as close, well, they're clearly not as close together as they were. Again, that exaggerated head movement and upper torso movement by Cristiano Magado. Sweeping down to the 2/3 race distance. 14 laps gone, 7 to go. 14 laps down, 7 to go. Cristiano Magado, and the gap has closed up once again. Chris Magado's just done a 60.49. His fastest is 60.40, but Scott Campbell's just done a 60.2, and Scott Campbell is the quickest of those front-running 4. In fact, the quickest driver on the circuit. But he needs a way past David Griffiths before he can make that extra speed count. Chris Magado not going for speed through the hairpin, getting his positioning right. Chris Magado, Dave Griffiths, Scott Campbell and Goose Gaivo for 1, 2, 3, 4. Behind them, Martin Pearce having a lonely drive in 5th place. Lonely? Well, he's about 18 lengths behind the guys in front, and about 30, 35, 40 lengths in front of the guy in 6th place, which is, well, a guy. Guy Pansar, and there goes Gonzalo Gaivo, and Scott Campbell closes the door on him. So Gonzalo Gaivo looking at a dive on the inside, Scott Campbell, the wily Canadian, saying, not this time, mate. Maybe you won the Mojo Cup 3 or 4 weeks ago, but one of the reasons you won that was that I wasn't there. And if I had have been, I wouldn't have let you past, and he didn't then. Well, David Griffiths getting a little bit closer to Cristiano Magado. Like I say, Chris Magado won his first world title on a last lap dash when he started the last lap in 3rd place, and there were 4 pieces of overtaking in 1 lap that led to Chris Magado gaining his first Rotax title. Is it going to go that far down in 2012? Dave Griffiths still very close to Cristiano Magado. Not only is Dave Griffiths only an occasional racer, I'm sorry to tell you as an Englishman that dd2s have virtually never raced in Great Britain. Tiffany Chittenden was the last dd2 British champion, but we just don't have a British Championship anymore. Why not? The promoters tell us there's not enough interest. Well, Dave Griffiths could provide some interest. Lucas Orrock racing in this race, Patrick Pearce racing in this race, Tamsin Germain in the Rotax Euro Challenge. All of them good exponents of dd2, and right now Dave Griffiths on a very serious bid for a Rotax world title. Cristiano Magado coming round to complete lap 17. And Goose Gaivo getting closer again to Scott Campbell, and to some degree Scott Campbell has been forced into the move by Goose, but he doesn't get past Dave Griffiths. One of the best Rotax finals we've had, on the basis that there's 4 drivers going for victory, and they've kept this going for 15-16 laps. Martin Pearce still running 5th, Guy Pansar 6th, Charlie Hipp 7th, Luc Soriol 8th, Florent Lambert 9th, and Dennis Kroos, after that disaster and having been outside of the top 20, is running 10th. A great drive by the former champion, the Dutchman. Well, I pause. Where do we go from here? Cristiano Magado has a slightly bigger lead than he's had at any previous stage. We've had somebody in difficulty from mid-grid at the interior hairpin. Scott Campbell telling David Griffiths that he's going to threaten a big wide outside sweep, and he does, and it comes off, and Scott Campbell drives on the big wide outside sweep past David Griffiths. So the Englishman is now relegated to 3rd, and as much as David Griffiths will want to pass the guy in front of him, if he loses one more place, he's off the podium in a race that he led, in a final that he led. Chris Magado, as happens when there's a change in 2nd and 3rd place, is one of the beneficiaries, and this is the biggest lead that we've had in any stage in the race. And it's not a bad time to establish a decent lead, because Cristiano Magado is coming round towards the end of the 19th lap in a 21 lap dd2 Masters final. There's a lot on this. Goose Gaivo looking for that podium place, but Dave Griffiths getting really close to Scott Campbell. The race at the moment, and I'm not taking anything for granted, Chris Magado hasn't won this yet, but 2nd, 3rd and 4th now is the really tight battleground, because Chris Magado has got a cushion. Scott Campbell 2nd, David Griffiths 3rd, Gonzalo Gaivo 4th, Martin Pearce in 5th place is getting closer to them, but this is lap 20 of 21. So with just 1 2/3 laps remaining, you can't see the Irishman getting any closer. Well, you can see him getting closer, but not getting himself to a podium place. Well, all your commentators talk about commentators' curses coming into play now. I don't want to say the wrong thing. It's the last lap. Cristiano Magado leads. Scott Campbell is second. David Griffiths is third. Gonzalo Gaibo is fourth. The lead that Cristiano Magado had is not quite as big, but there's only 2/3 of a lap remaining. Chris Magado, dare I say it, ought to win it from here. Scott Campbell under pressure from Dave Griffiths. Dave Griffiths under pressure from Gonzalo Gaivao. Martin Pearce getting closer but not sufficient to threaten their podium places. One of these top four is going to lose out on a podium place when all four of them would have made a worthy champ. History's being made. The first guy to win 3 Rotax titles is Cristiano Magado. Scott is third. Gonzalo Gaibo a superb fourth place even though he's not made the podium. Martin Pearce has still got what it takes. 11 years after his first Rotax Grand Final podium, he finishes fifth. Luke Soriol 8. Florent Lambert a very good drive into 9th. And Dennis Kroos in all the circumstances, an excellent drive to 10th. Christoph Adam, very good drive by the double champion Chris Adam. That one, if you didn't enjoy watching that race, well, what do you want to see? That's what it looked like at the finish, and confirmation that history has been made. 3 times a Rotax Grand Final champion, Cristiano Magado. Did it in 2003, did it last year, and has just done it here in Portugal. Portuguese name, Portuguese ethnic background, Cristiano Magado wins. A great drive into second place by the most experienced guy in a Rotax Grand Finals. His 9th final, and he's on the podium again, Scott Campbell. David Griffiths, only a very occasional driver, a stunningly good drive onto the podium in 3rd place. Gaivo Gonçalo of Portugal, so unlucky not to make the podium. A great drive by Goose. Portugal's #1 came home 4th. Martin Pearce of Ireland 5th. Guy Pansart and Charlie Hipp from France were 6th and 7th. Luke Soriol, a former champion in Canada, a Canadian former world #1 at this level, 8th. Florent Lambert 9th. And Dennis Kroos, another former champion, completing the top 10.
Agora o Galvão é que fez uma grande recuperação. Mas o gajo já viu que o gajo tinha.
Well, Cristiano Magado of South Africa making history in the Rotax Grand Finals. He must be a happy soul indeed. He's talking to Jenny Wade now.
Cristiano Magado, our first triple World Finals winner. How are you feeling, dd2 Masters 2012?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I'm honoured to have won that, and well done to the rest of the guys. They gave me a really tough race, but thankfully, just the timing was right, and I held a small gap at the end, which was enough.
There was really a battle going on there behind you, and just enough to pull a little bit of a gap, and then it was all over, I think. But for some time, What were you thinking?
Yeah, I think any of us three could have probably won it, changing the lead all the time. But yeah, thank God that I was blessed with a win, and I'm really grateful for that. And thank you.
It was fantastic racing, so congratulations to your team and, of course, another South African number one.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you. Sure.
Well, Chris Magado, clearly a very happy guy, and why not? 3 times a Rotax champion. Well, a big thank you to Alan Sterling and family back home in Northern Ireland. Thank you for the text, Alan. Appreciate what you've written. Thank you. Also, once again, the birthday boy in Kent, Mike Chittenden. Happy birthday, Mike. Hope all's going well for you on your birthday. We hope that Chris's health is holding strong. Hang on in, Chris. You've got plenty of years to keep watching kart racing at this level.